How's it going, people of YouTube? Today I wanted to make a video on God and his true transcendence and what that really means. As I've dove into spiritual and religious studies, I've really come to see the true deep reality of God's transcendence and again what this means. And I think the hardest part, or the most difficult obstacle to get over in this, is that it's a concept, right? It's this concept of God's transcendence, right? It's not transcendence itself. It's and again, it's really dicey and tough to talk about, because no matter what, when we put something into words, it becomes a concept, right? So I was actually reading this book today, and this is what kind of sparked my initial thought of making this video. It's called God as Nature Sees God. God as Nature Sees God, I'm sorry. And it's by John R. Mabry. Right, so I'd like to read you guys the quote here. So it says, "Whenever we speak of religious contents, we move into a world of images that point to something ineffable. If there is one concept that most faith traditions share, it is that God is beyond." Right, again, so we need to think about this. Right, it's coming from a place of that religion and spiritual practice, right? These are all concepts to get us somewhere, right? To get us to God, right? And I think it's really easy to mistake the finger pointing at the moon, right, instead of the moon, right? We have this analogy of all religion and spiritual practices being fingers pointing at the moon, right? And this fundamentalism, this really shutting down of oneself, comes from paying attention only to the finger, right, to the path, and not to the moon it points to, right? And so I just see a lot of this today is kind of God's transcendence is really taken out of the picture in a certain sense. It's stayed in the concept of transcendence and not the experience, so to say, of transcendence. And I think this is another great point, right, that religion and spiritual practices, they're really meant to produce an experience, right? That's where all these things stem from, and it's an experience. It's not a kind of staid concept, right? It's not this really solid and rigid concepts. We use these concepts to bring us to this other place, and in the East, right, they call this enlightenment, and in more Western traditions, right, we would call this kind of theosis in a way, I guess. And yeah, so again, we really need to remember that it stems from an experience, right? And experiences are not conceptual, right? We have an experience and then we conceptualize the experience after the fact, or maybe a split second after the moment of experience itself, right? So, but we have to again remember that the concepts are not the things themselves. And again, this really truly applies to God, and it's just our natural kind of dispositions as humans to cling to our concepts. And right, we know this. That's why all these religion and spiritual paths kind of stress ego detachment and worldly detachment, and all these again methods, but they all really have this in common. And again, this is because we are habitually so attached to our concepts and ways of the world, and who we think we are and who we want to be, and this gives us our identity, right, our person. And yeah, we have to remember that this also can translate over to spiritual and religious practices, right? And this is a really tough thing to get over, is that just because you are practicing a spiritual or religious practice doesn't mean that you have any space from those original conceptual dispositions, right, that we were just talking about, right? We have to really use those understand the truth of this practices in order to use those certain practices to come out of those dispositions. Right, so it's again just being aware and having the knowledge and being able to have space. So I think this will bring me into the last point that I wanted to make, is of again that we really cling to our concepts and who we think we are, and right, our ego. And I just want to bring up that, right, we think of ourselves as person, right, as persons, right? Person stems from persona, correct, right, which means to put on a mask, essentially. And again, so we, even as people wear our masks, but that is not who we are. And again, it's try to take these words with a grain of salt, but the reason that I'm saying this last point is because we think of, especially in Western traditions, really solely in Western traditions, right, the Trinity, right? God is 3 persons, right? But if person means persona, that's God is 3 personas, but there is an underlying a thing that connects those 3 personas, and that's wholly and fully God, right? And that's the ineffable, that truly transcendent that we have to recognize in whatever path we're in, right? And so again, the reason I said that is to recognize that in even something like Christian theology and Trinitarianism and all of those great things. So I really enjoy these paths and even practice these paths myself, but again, it's just being able to have those space with the paths and realizing that they should lead to experience and lead to the God within, not even separate from oneself. Again, these are all concepts, and this experience of God is truly ineffable. So yeah, so I think that's going to do it for this video. Really give this one a couple minutes to think about, and tell me what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Yeah, I'd really appreciate that. So thanks again, guys. I hope you have a great day. See you soon.